My name is Dr. Ken Harris, and I met 5 years ago. I met your mom and your sister while I was vacationing in Naples, Florida, and I was just eating breakfast in the dining room of the hotel, and I saw your mom and your sister having a conversation, and I saw there was trouble there. The flight got canceled for their return trip to New York. They didn't know how they were going to get to the airport. So I said, well, here's an opportunity to give, Ken. So I said, excuse me, I'd be very happy to take you guys to the airport. Get in my car and let's go.
Total strangers.
Total strangers. I had no idea, I didn't even know their names. But I knew they were in trouble. And the voice of the soul always says, how can I help? And I said, here's an opportunity to help. So I offered myself.
I'm so glad you did, because now we have the opportunity to become friends, which is wonderful. I know you started your career as a chiropractor, but you've moved on to sort of a different direction. Can you explain to me?
Well, I've had the privilege of being 45 years in chiropractic practice. I had a family practice, and I just retired as of January of this year. And we took them from the cradle to the grave. We had a vitalistic chiropractic practice where we didn't treat necks and backs, we treated people, and we had a wellness concept of preventative care. So I was been very blessed. And in my travels, I've been blessed to meet some very interesting people through chiropractic and otherwise. So here we are.
And here we are. And you wrote a book about sort of a lifelong experience with things that affect us, but not physically.
Right. I've had, in the last 20 years of my life, incredible synchronicities, which go way beyond any mathematical probability of taking place. And I've been alert and aware, and I've started to write them down. And after a while, I realized I have a book here. I got some great, inspiring stories for people to know that we're not alone. We're always being guided, but we got to stay aware and awake and alert. And so I've had some crisscross roads of travels in my life and meeting incredible people.
When you say synchronicity, what does that mean to you?
It's when time and space intersect. People call it coincidence, but I believe there are no coincidences. I believe that we're being guided by the invisible world, the spirit, you might say, and we're not alone. And so we just got to be aware that we're being guided.
One of sort of the great unhappinesses of life is that we do feel alone. We wonder, why are we here? What does this mean? Is this all there is? I'm just going to live, struggle, die. Done. That's not true.
I don't believe that for a second. I think there's meaning and purpose in our lives, and each individual has to figure it out for themselves. We're all not here for the same reason, but we're all here for a reason. And if you stay open, you'll be guided.
So how do you do that? How do you find your purpose? How do you stay open? Because I'm always so preoccupied with, what I have to do next, and what's going to happen next week, and worried about 5 years from now. And it's very hard to stay in the present and very hard to sort of be open.
I think the key is to be in the present, and your purpose will find you. You don't have to go out looking for your purpose. Your purpose will be attracted to you. It takes a lot of focus to ask yourself, each and every person you meet, what am I being told here by the universe? What should I maybe be doing next, or maybe what I should not be doing next? So I think we're provided with guidance all the time.
And so how does one tap into that guidance? How do you listen to the sort of signals around you?
Well, I'm a meditator, so that helps prepare me to receive what I'm supposed to get that day. And I have no thought for tomorrow at this point in my life. I'm very happy to be in the present moment, because in the end, that's all we own, the present, eternal now. Right. And a lot of philosophies have said this, but I really believe that if you stay in the moment, you'll be shown the next step. You don't have to get too far ahead.
So for instance, how do you sort of tap into this sort of thing that's bigger than you?
Every time I meet someone, I ask myself, what is this person going to teach me? And I listen. And from the guy filling up my tank at the gas station to the cashier, I think God's speaking through everybody personally. And we just got to keep our ears and our hearts open. It takes an openness of heart, really, to say, not to judge people by their occupation. Well, what's this person going to teach me? Everybody's a student and teacher to each other.
That's a beautiful thing. So what steps could somebody take to, if taking baby steps to realize sort of your purpose and how we're all connected in the world. What would the
Well,
first steps
I think the
be?
first step we all need to take is gratitude. Wake up every day and just be thankful that you're still alive and you have an opportunity to give and receive love. Because in the end, I think that's what we're here for. And we can find many ways of doing that, but the big picture is we're the givers and the receivers of love to everyone we meet. And that's my attitude. So no one's a stranger to me. The world is my waiting room, in my opinion. Every time I meet someone, they're a potential teacher.
Wow.
So it's appreciation and gratitude, I think, are the keys.
And it sounds like taking the time to actually talk to people.
Yes, I'm not shy. The Irish part of me, we like to talk, and I'll engage people in a loving way. I try to always find something to uplift people.
Right.
Because you see so many people, as we were talking before, hate their jobs. They're going about the drudgery of living,
Right.
and they're asleep. They're sleepwalking.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm here as a reminder to wake up.
Wow. So you wrote this book. So what was sort of your aha moment that you realized, oh my goodness, there's so many lessons here?
I've had several dreams, and in the dream I knew I was going to meet certain people at certain points. And then when it happens, I started to get giddy almost. I mean, I said, oh, okay. And I started to trust that I'm being guided. I had a dream I was going to meet Wayne Dyer, a famous author, Deepak Chopra, and Oprah Winfrey recently. And I've met Wayne. I wound up becoming his chiropractor. I met Deepak. I taught his 7 spiritual laws of success all around the country. And I'm still waiting to meet Oprah, but I realize now, as I said to Bobby, I won't meet her till the book's published. Because several years ago, 2 years ago, hiking at Lake Mohonk, I ran into Gail King in the middle of the forest. And I went up to Gail and I said, Gail, I got to tell you this story. And she was very open. And she says, give me your card, I'll tell Oprah. She loves this. You had a dream you're going to meet her? I said, yeah, but I'm meeting you. Is she with you? She said, no. But I'm going to give you your card. 6 months later, I was in La Jolla, California, eating breakfast at the Hyatt Regency, and said, who sits down next to me? Stedman Graham. And I looked at him, I said, Stedman, is Oprah with you? He says, no, but why? And I tell him the story. He says, give me your card, I'm going to tell her. So I know she's already
Right.
she's on deck.
Right.
I'm going to meet her when the book's published. But dreams are another way of synchronicities, precursors to what's happening in your life. If you stay open to the dreams, the spirit world or your unconscious, as Carl Jung would call it, the collective unconscious, it'll guide you. That's one way of connecting, through dreams.
Now, I've had in my life, I've had some very sort of profound dreams. The one that really shook me to my core was I had a dream about my father who passed away 5 years ago. And in my dream, he called on the phone. And it sort of sounded like a bad radio frequency.
Some static.
But it was him.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, Dad, where are you? And he's like, I'm not sure. I think I'm subterranean, but I'm between 2 oceans.
Oh.
And it was him. I dreamt it, and in my dream I said, I think Bobby wants to talk to you, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. And in my dream, Bobby was like, Skip, how you doing? Where are you? And I woke up shaking, and it was one of those things that sometimes a dream kind of stays with you for days. It felt more real than waking up in my bed in the morning.
I understand completely. The psychologist would tell you that you had a vivid dream. But I believe you really met your dad and you had a communication with him. As I did with my own dad. I had the same experience of in the sleep state, waking up shaking, and crying actually. And Judy said to me, what's the matter, Ken? I said, I was just with my dad. She says, where? I said, I think we were in a monastery, because it reminded me of a monastery. And I asked him, his name was Lou, I said, Lou, well, is this heaven? And he smiled, he says, no, Ken, but I have permission to come and speak with you, because I see you've been unhappy since I passed. And I'm here to tell you I'm fine. I want you to go on with your life. I'm moving on with my life. I says, so what's it like on the other side? And he smiled at me. He says, well, Ken, they let me come to speak with you, but they wouldn't let me tell you what's going to happen when you drop your body. He says, but you'll find out, and each man and woman must find out for him or herself. So he didn't give me this whole council of heaven and the 7 angels and men on this side. He just said, no, there's more. He says that, but when the right time and the right season, it'll be revealed to you. And then we hugged. Actually, I saw him. I spoke with him, and this is what freaked me out. I literally hugged him, and I knew what my father's hug felt like. I could put me in a room with 1,000 men, and I could tell you, and it was my dad. And at that point, the hearts merged, and he left. And he hasn't ever returned. But I know he's fine, and I'm fine. And he gave me permission to move on. Because I was in a really stuck place. I had tremendous guilt. I had to put him in a nursing home at the time. And I had promised I would never do that. And I used to go and visit and cry for a half hour before I went in, and another half hour when I came out. And finally, I said to Judy, I can't go anymore. I got to give him a chance to go. And it took 2 weeks for him to go. But every time I would show up, he would literally live off my energy field. He would bounce back, and I said, this is not fair to him or me.
No.
And he left, and he's fine.
Yeah.
So you're not crazy, and I'm not crazy. We had a real experience. Now, it sounds like, from what you told me, your dad may have been between the worlds. He wasn't quite where he wanted to be, and he wasn't still here. You said there was some confusion he had. Sometimes the soul gets stuck between the veil.
I had a similar experience with my grandfather at the time, and I remember it's a very funny story. He came to me in a dream. I'm like, Grandpa, what are you doing here? We just buried you. And he said, oh, I'm just here to say hi. And he goes, I have to go now. I have to play a trick on Etty. Etty was his sister. So I was talking to her the next day. She's like, that darndest thing happened. My front lawn was covered in golf balls. Now, my grandfather was an avid golfer. And she lived in the middle of nowhere in Florida. There was no way golf balls just showed up on her front lawn. And I went, no. So these things happen.
Right.
We immediately discount them because they don't fall within our preconceived notions of what's real. Explain.
Well, what's reality, there is no objective reality, I don't think. I think we all wear different lenses of consciousness, and we all see this world differently. So, but there are more than, there's a range. Just like the dogs here below and above, well, energy is below, the infrared and the ultraviolet are part of the spectrum, but you can't see them. So I think there's a whole other reality going on right now, right here in this house, that we're not aware of right now. And sometimes, I used to visit the nursing home, and people think the people in the nursing home are all demented. They may just be living on another channel. Sometimes I think they're just having a conversation that none of us can relate to, but they get it. I saw people interact and exchange information, and they walked away happy, and I had no idea what they were talking about, but they certainly know. So there's more to heaven and earth, Horatio, than any of us know.
Yeah.
And we got to stay open to that. This is not the whole show.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me more about your book. What kinds of things are in your book that can help other people?
Well, I've discovered there are 7 distinct types of synchronicities, from the precursor dreams to messages, to omens, to artificial ones. So I've had all of them. I've had about 30 or 35 different really impactful synchronicities. Like you just said, couldn't be made up. And I said, I think people should know this. I think other people should be reminded of their own, because I think it's happening all the time to people, but they don't remember, they're not aware. So it's my hope with this book that it's going to create some introspection on the part of other people to go in and say, hey, you know what? That happened to me, and maybe there's a message there for me. And we're going to give them a way of interpreting it. There are 5 questions you always ask when you have a synchronicity to try to figure out the meaning of it. Sometimes it's not obvious in the beginning, but when you retrospect, look back, you say, oh, so that's why that happened, and I had to meet this one to meet that one. There's a stepping stone process. Just like here, I didn't know 5 years ago taking your mother and your sister to the airport was going to end up being here. I didn't even know I was going to write a book 5 years ago. So here I am, I laugh, I just retrace it back. Oh, so that's why I met them.
Well, and then 2 things had to happen in that story. You had to be generous of spirit and say, let me help you. And they, for some odd reason, had to decide to trust you.
They did. They knew where I was coming from.
2 very, unusual things happened. And then 5 years later, here we are sitting and talking.
I almost chuckle every time it happens now. They happen on a daily basis to me, synchronicities at this point, because I'm just so alert. The other day I was, my chair broke in Florida. We were in vacation. So I had to go to the Ace Hardware store. And I said to the guy at the front, I said, by the way, do you have a bolt like this? He says, do I have a bolt like this? We got 2 rows of bolts. Go back and ask this guy, Ed. He'll find the bolt for you. So I go back to this big store and I said, Ed! And Ed comes out of the woodwork. He said, what can I do for you? I said, I got to find this bolt. He says, no problem. 45 minutes later, he finally found the bolt. He was very patient with me and very kind. And he said, he says, it's not just the bolt. I think this chair needs, here's the word, an alignment and an adjustment. And I said to myself,
No
bingo, I'm a chiropractor. I know about alignments and adjustments. So I said to him, I wouldn't have said anything. I said, I understand that terminology. That's what I do for a living. He goes, you're a chiropractor? I said, I'm retired. I'm not looking for business. He says, but I am. I just moved here from Chicago. I've been having neck and back problems, and I don't know where to go. And I've been praying that someone would come in my path and send me to a chiropractor. And here you are. So I said, not only that, he's right down the block from this store. You could walk to him. And he says, is he any good? And I said, hey, Ed, I'm 45 years in the business. Would I go to someone who wasn't good? He said, that's enough. Give me his card. So he was a happy camper. But I was alert. He said
Right.
2 key words.
Right.
And bingo, the connection was made.
So do you feel once you become open to these synchronicitous events,
Time and space intersecting.
once you sort of open up that door a little bit, do you find that all of a sudden there they are?
I think they're there all the time, except you have to be aware and alert for everybody, not just me. But you have to be open to it. And you have to pay attention to the present moment. I mean, those words, adjustment and alignment,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he hit me with a gong bell, But that's just one example. That's not a life-changing synchronicity. There are other times when you meet people, your life changes forever.
Yes.
You meet them at the right junction. You've
Right.
met them 5 years before, 5 years later, it wouldn't work. But when you met them, the timing was impeccable. And I think the universe is intelligent. I think we're part of an energy matrix. I think we're all part of the web. And subconsciously, we're talking to each other all the time. Quantum physics, I mean, it tells us that there's a field. We're all part of the field. And we have different ways of accessing the field. One of them is by staying in the present moment. I think that's the key. And having as I say, gratitude.
Yeah.
Everyone's coming into your life for a reason. There's no coincidence, no randomness to life.
I know my husband always tells me there are no coincidences. There are no coincidences. I've come to believe him. One thing that I have found that helps me tremendously when I'm really feeling anxious, because I suffer from anxiety and I'm really trying to get the better of it. One thing I find that really, really helps me is, waking up and saying, wow, another day and I'm here, the sun is out, I've got food in the fridge, I have clothes I can put on, I'm going to go downstairs and pet my cat and my dog, and life is good.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
That's the attitude of gratitude right there.
I always talk to my sister about this, and I say, I think what you need in life is a short list. You need a short list of things that make you happy, not a long list, a short list. Are you alive? Are you healthy? Can you eat? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have people you love? That's kind of it. The rest doesn't really matter. The rest kind of comes and goes. But to me, the secret always seemed to be you need a short list.
Thankfulness. Thankfulness. We already hit the lottery. We were born in a Western world.
Yeah.
When you look at what's going on in the world, we have nothing to complain about here in America. On a material level, for sure. And once that's handled, then the most important thing is, as I said to you before when I came in, the richest people are the people who have healthy and loving relationships.
So talk to me about relationships and why they're so important.
You can't buy them. They're not for sale. You have to earn them. And they say if you want to have a friend, you have to be a friend. And so, no matter how much money you make in an occupation, you can't. I love the quote from James Taylor. You can't get much love from a dollar bill.
Yeah.
In one of his songs. If they're going to let us take anything to the other side as we drop our bodies and move through the veil, I believe it'll be the love. That's the only thing we're going to take with us. I think when your job's done, time to go.
Yeah.
You know, we get 50, 60, 80, or 100 years if we're lucky, and when it's over, it's over. Next. I think there's two ways to look at life. It's oblivion or migration. When you die, it's either going to be you were never here, or you're going to have a journey. I choose to believe we're on an eternal journey. Everything that's happened in my life has convinced me of that. The people I've met, the way I've been blessed to have great parents. They say you choose them. I don't know if that's true, but I had wonderful parents,
So did I.
as you did too, as we were talking before.
Yeah.
And they came. Your father came. My father came. What more do we want?
Yeah. And I think also, you know, happiness is a choice. Like I was sharing with you earlier that this week alone, 2 people who run shops locally have said to me, every time you walk in, you're happy. You're the only person who walks in who's always smiling. And I thought about it for a second, and you know, sometimes that takes work, but it's a choice.
Yes.
Because the other thing is living in this sort of unhappiness. Again, we're here, we're breathing, we can eat, you know, our needs are met. After that, what else do we really need?
Cherry on the cake. Whatever happens after that is velvet, I would say.
Yeah, I say great.
Happiness is a choice. It has nothing to do with external circumstances. It's an internal decision. And it takes a lot less energy to smile than to frown. So that's another good thing.
Yes.
When you smile, there's a lot less energy expenditure.
So, you know, people are going to be watching this and they're going to think to themselves, how do I tap into all of this stuff? What are the sort of the spiritual baby steps that people can take to arrive at a place where they are living in the present, where they're happy, where they're content?
Pay attention. I would say pay attention to everyone and everything that comes across your path. As I said before, everyone's a student and a teacher to each other.
Right.
And to wake up with appreciation every day, that's the beginning point, gratitude, thankfulness. And life will send those in your path who you need to meet at the right time. You have to trust that. I believe life is intelligent. We're not here flotsam and jetsam on the top of the ocean being pushed from pillar to post. We're being guided, and we're not alone. I can definitely tell you we're not alone. We have energetic beings who are guiding us all the time, and they're very patient with us.
So who are these energetic beings?
Each one has different ancestral patterns. Some, you know, everybody has a different ancestry. Everyone who's ever been in your DNA is with you right now, in my belief system. They're still encoded there, and you can wake them up. You can access them, but it takes, in my case, through meditation. That's how I ask. I ask, what's my next step? And I don't get too far ahead because that's when the anxiety comes.
Yeah.
Okay, when you start getting 5 steps ahead, you're going to trip. So just see what the next step is, one step at a time.
Little tiny building blocks.
As they say, baby steps.
Yeah.
In that movie, What About Bob?
I saw that the other day. I was cracking
I
up.
love that movie.
Yeah, it's funny. So when does your book come out? When can people...
I'm hoping within 30 to 60 days tops it should
wow.
be available. It's in the final editing stages, and I'm excited because I created a website called synchronicitiesrus.com where I'm going to invite people to send me their stories, and we're going to do a series of these books. Synchronicities and how you met in relationship, how you met your spouse. Synchronicities, how you got your new job. People need to be inspired and read other people's stories and see that, wow, it happened to them. Maybe it can happen to me. And I believe it does if you're open to it, as you say. You got to be open.
And what I love about this is that it doesn't require you to buy anything, except for your book. We can harness this. It's all here.
Yeah, and we're going to give them a roadmap so they'll figure out what type of synchronicity they're experiencing, and then they'll ask the questions for their interpretive meaning. So it's the magic, the mystery, and the meaning.
Now you've lectured for Deepak Chopra. You're very knowledgeable about chakras and stuff like that. How did you educate yourself? How did you first get involved in all this?
Well, when I entered chiropractic college, I heard of a legendary chiropractor by the name of Dr. William Bain, and he was a chiropractor in Derry, New Hampshire. And he came to the college. When I graduated my chiropractic college, I had the privilege of teaching for a year. I was the valedictorian, so they let me teach. That was the gift. And I heard Dr. Bain was coming to the college. I said, oh, I got to go find, out of curiosity, I'd heard about him. I sat in a room, Sarah, with 200 people in the back of the room, and he started to speak, and I started to cry. I literally, my heart was rended. Everybody else in the room disappeared. That day he came just to meet me and to remind me who I was and to wake up. And then I studied with him. I studied energetic healing with him. I mentored with him for 10 years. And he started something called the Whole Health Institute, which was an umbrella organization of all types of healthcare providers. Bill's vision was we should have all the various healing arts under one umbrella and stop fighting with each other. Yeah. We each have a time and a place to help people. And he unfortunately died rather young. He was 56. Oh, wow. And I kept it going for a couple of years, but I didn't have the tensile strength to keep it going by myself. So I let it go. I did conferences, and I still have this passion. 2 years ago, I joined up with Dr. Alyssa Rankin. She's a very well-known MD, and she started something called the Whole Health Medicine Institute. And I attended that class for a year with her, and I'm in the process of trying to get men involved in the training. Unfortunately, I attended the class. I was the only male physician in the class. Really? There were 55 women doctors and me. I brought a picture to show you because you're going to get a kick out of it. And it was not a female weekend workshop, but I know I was sent there because I'm going to bring the men. And I'm working with Lissa now to see if we can bridge the gap. I belong to a group called the Mankind Project, which is all men. And there are many, many healers in that group. So we're trying to create webinars where we can now get men interested in the Whole Health Medicine Institute. Because it can't be just all women, although the women are leading the way. Make no mistake about it. If we're going to find our way out of the mess we're in, women are going to lead us home. That's my belief.
I've heard that from other people.
Oh, it's evident. Anytime you go to seminars, it's going to be 90 women and 10 guys. Yeah. The men are sleeping, so I'm hoping to provide something to wake them up. So I'm in the process now of creating a chiropractic elder wisdom council.
Oh,
where we're going to go all around to the colleges, and the 6 of us, we're the seed group, all 40 or more years in practice, and we're going to give back to the young doctors.
Oh, that's
our
wonderful.
Experience, so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Just like I told the young man who's working with your husband, pay attention.
Yeah.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. He's been down the road.
Yeah.
Didn't I tell you that, Liam? That's the first thing I said to you.
So explain to me what energetic healing is.
The human body is the tip of the iceberg. We're not just this.
Right.
There is various levels of energy beyond the physical body. And when you work in the energetic field, you're working in the preform. Before illness shows up in the body, there's always got to be a conflict pattern energetically between the thoughts and the feelings. So when the head and the heart go out of coherence, the physical body suffers. So when you work in the energy field, you're actually helping the body to realign the energy of the head and the heart. The HeartMath Institute is doing this in a big way, where they're teaching people through biofeedback and neurofeedback how to be aware of their own patterns. Every thought you have has a biochemical sequence to it.
Right.
So you think a bad thought, you're going to create a bad chemical. You think a happy thought, you're going to make a happy chemical, through the hormonal system primarily. And so I specifically work in a form of energy called attunement, which affects the 7 endocrine glands, not the 7 chakras.
Right.
And you can open and close the gates and help people get reconnected to themselves through the endocrines, which every endocrine gland has an emotion attached to it.
How does one do that?
Well, you got to go for training.
Yeah.
It takes some specific training, and like anything else, practice. The quieter I get, the more intuitive I become, and my hands go where they need to go. But it doesn't touch the physical body. It actually works in the field. It's 2 or 3 inches or 2 or 3 feet sometimes.
So is that when people say they were getting their chakras aligned?
There are many ways to access the field. There's no one way better than the other, but there's just different ways. I was taught the attunement through my chiropractic mentor, Dr. Bain. Right. He was one of the developers of it.
Wow. And so what kind of, like when you're working with somebody and you're kind of aligning them, can you sort of feel everything falling into place?
Sometimes you feel it in your own body. As you're working on them, you'll have the experience that they're having.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's actually a merging of the field. Yeah. You open the field, you connect the field, and then sometimes it'll show up in your own system because there's really only one of us.
Right. Right.
In the end, we're going to find out. I think that's the biggest joke.
Right.
When you drop your body, you're going to say, what was I upset about all these years? There's only one of us anyway.
Right.
It was me and another body, you know. I say, when people say, many times we travel, Judy and I, and people say, so where are you from? And depending on their level of awareness, I look at their eyes, I say, well, same place you're from. And either they get it or they don't.
They don't, right.
And if they don't, I say, I'm from New Jersey.
Right.
And then they usually say to me, hey, what are you doing here? I say, I'm just visiting. Aren't we all?
Yeah.
And either they get it, and then
And they
you
get
can
it or
tell
they
the
don't.
glaze
Right,
comes over their
right.
eyes. So, but that's what I believe. I really believe we're all part of the unified field.
How has doing all this work and helping so many people, how has that affected you?
I've been blessed. That's how it affected me. I've been given a life of service and an abundant life. I've had a very good life. I have no complaints. And I'm happy. I mean, you can't outgive life. You can't outgive the giver. There's no end to giving. And I'm learning in my later years to receive now. Things are coming back. You know, the karmic boomerang is coming around. I'm being blessed. Being here. How did I get here? You know, I didn't seek this. I just called Bobby up and said, I love your new thing. And he says, come on down. I want to interview you. And this can, this is going to get the message out to a larger audience. But I didn't manipulate this consciously. This
Right.
was provided. I believe, they say the table has been set and we come with our own menus. There's a smorgasbord here in life. And we're all one. Oh, I don't want this, I don't want that. No, it's all been prepared. Just show up, pay attention, and be thankful. That would be my message.